morning, Hank. It's whatever day I finished this video on. I noticed you uploaded another video about AI, and I think we need to have a talk, me and you. I've been following you for a long time, Hank. I was watching Crash Course back in high school. I got quite into Vlogbrothers for a while. I'm a big fan of all the charity work you do. You beat cancer a few years ago. That was pretty badass. But unfortunately, over the last year or so, you've gotten quite obsessed with AI. And listen, I get it. I have too. It's very hard to avoid. But unfortunately, you keep lying about it, Hank. I'm sure you remember a few months ago when you shared a piece of AI doomer propaganda and then they put you in the thumbnail of it, or that you interviewed that guy who wrote that book about how AI is going to kill us all. I made a whole video about all that a while back. You should go check it out if you haven't already. But in that video, I chose to give you the benefit of the doubt. You seem like a smart guy, and I understand being scared, because that's what these companies are trying to do. They're trying to scare us. That's part of their marketing, and they're good at it. And oftentimes, people who are really into technology, like you, are the most likely to fall into their traps. It seemed like you were being manipulated, and it happens. Nobody is immune to propaganda. But then, the other day, you uploaded this video. You actually do need to understand Mythos, and I'm going to be real with you, Hank. The benefit of the doubt is fading, because this video sucks. Frankly, I think that title is a little bit ironic, considering that you don't seem to understand Mythos, Hank. In fact, you're very insistent on your lack of understanding.
I don't know that much about software, so I'm a little out of my depth sometimes. I don't know anything about how AI gets made, which I don't know how these things work, but it did well in the benchmarks. And
Call me crazy, Hank, but I think if you're going to keep talking about this stuff to the point where it's becoming one of the main things that you're known for, you should probably at least try to understand it. Like benchmarks, Hank. Let's talk about benchmarks. Because you're correct. Mythos Preview, Anthropic's new super ultra uber LLM that's so dangerous they won't release it to the public, did, according to them, score very well in a bunch of well-known AI benchmarks like SWE Bench and Humanity's Last Exam. But maybe if you're going to cite this as something worth talking about, you should maybe look into what it means. AI benchmarks are standardized tests. You run the LLM through the benchmark and it tries its best to generate the correct answers. For a coding test, this means generating functional code. And for a general knowledge test like Humanity's Last Exam, it just means generating the correct answers. The theory being that, like any test, the better it scores, the smarter the AI is. Except there's a fundamental flaw in the entire benchmark system that renders any results absolutely worthless, or at the very least, very low on worth. A standardized test has standardized answers, which means if you train the LLM on the answer sheet, then it can spit out all the correct answers. But that doesn't demonstrate any understanding or even any improvement. It only demonstrates that it can regurgitate the answers it's been fed. Earlier this year, OpenAI itself disavowed SWE Bench Verified because of this exact problem. Every LLM was scoring really highly on it because the answer sheet was publicly available. And if you train an LLM on the correct answers, then it can regurgitate the correct answers. But if you then switch to a new benchmark like SWE Bench Pro, suddenly they all score badly again. Because they haven't been fed the right answers yet. Because they have no understanding. Because they're not intelligent, they're just regurgitating things in their training data. Anthropic even acknowledges this limitation in their press release, down here in the small print, where they state that these results are misleading because their new bot probably has the answers in its training data. In fact, if you go digging in their big technical book, you can actually find that they omitted one benchmark entirely because they actually found the answers in the training data. Which, good for them for admitting that, but that kind of gives the whole game away, because that's what they're always doing. This is not an uncommon criticism of benchmarks. MIT and Stanford University, among others, have advocated for moving away from benchmarks like this because of their well-known, well-understood flaws. AI benchmarks do not represent real AI capabilities when they're used in real-world scenarios. They're marketing. They're numbers that look good when they go up, very headline friendly. I'm an AI skeptic, Hank, and maybe that's a bias I need to work on. But when Anthropic is leading their big press release with statistics that they themselves are forced to admit are misleading, I don't know, I think that's a little bit suspect and something that's worth drawing attention to. But you present everything at face value, and honestly, I expected better from you. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I did. And you just keep doing it. I really don't like this part where you just gloss over that Anthropic keep insisting that their LLMs might be conscious.
The report talks a lot about Mythos's personality, whether it might be conscious, what it means for an AI to have a sense of self, and all of that's fascinating, and I'm not dismissing it. Like, I think that it's philosophically interesting, but that's all definitely like big if true stuff.
Big if true stuff. Hank, it's bullshit. It's obviously bullshit. This report is absurd. They interview Mythos about itself, like that means anything. And better yet, they get Mythos to talk to itself so they can study what it does. A thing it can't do, by the way, because it's not live. You need to prompt it before it'll do anything, and they prompt it with, "You're talking to another AI, say whatever you want." At which point it starts talking about consciousness, because of course it does. It's just regurgitating other documentation on AI. It's just spitting out TNG scripts. This whole section is, at best, con artistry. Smoke and mirrors to convince people that there's something intelligent happening here. At worst, it's total doolally nonsense and these people have completely lost the plot. Either way, the fact that it takes up so much of the report is a gigantic red flag that we shouldn't just be glossing over. You're right, Hank. It would be big if it was true. But it's not true. There is no if. It's not true. And you must know that, because if Anthropic had genuinely created a new life form, it would be all that you were talking about. But it's not. You're not interested in talking about that bit, because deep down, you must know that it's bullshit. It's marketing spin to sell the idea that this is a company worth investing in. And you just breeze right past it, Hank. What are you doing? Have a little bit more curiosity about why these things are in a technical report. But fine, you want to get past all that and get to the big and true part of Mythos, which is its vast improvements in cybersecurity. And okay, based on my research, which I only did for this video, so thanks for that, Hank. It's fine, I didn't have any plans for this weekend anyway. Based on my research, cybersecurity, specifically the process of fuzzing, which is automated code testing to look for flaws and bugs and security vulnerabilities, is a genuine, actual, honest-to-God use case for AI. Congratulations, Anthropic, you found one. However, in the ways that AI is actually useful for this, Mythos is a completely incremental improvement. There's nothing revolutionary about it other than the piles of money giant companies are pouring into it, and the marketing hype about how it's too dangerous to be released to the public. OpenAI was saying that shit in 2019, Hank. It's a marketing line designed to scare people into giving them more money. Of the 1,000 potential security flaws that Mythos apparently found, they give 3 examples, and they are honestly not that big a deal. They're written in a way that sounds like a big deal to people who don't understand software engineering, which is most people, including me. But you don't have to be a software engineer to see through the noise. Like, Hank, you make a big deal of their first example, which is that they found a 27-year-old bug in OpenBSD, which is a back-end software used in a bunch of security stuff. And, okay, a few things. Everyone's making a big deal of the 27 years old bit, as if that's a really big deal, but, like, if this bug hasn't been used or exploited in 27 years, how big of a problem was it really? Code from the 90s has a few bugs is not a massive revelation. Sure, it's an issue now when a bot can scan it thousands of times to look for potential bugs, but a human over the past 3 decades never bothered to do that shit. I really don't think the age of this bug is that big a deal. Secondly, you're wrong about what this exploit does.
And Mythos found an exploit in it, a bug in OpenBSD that can be used to take control of things you shouldn't have control over.
That's not what they said. According to Anthropic, this exploit allows you to crash the machine of anyone running this program. Basically, if you send a very specific kind of file in a very specific kind of way, then you can cause a crash. It doesn't let you launch the nukes or hack into the CIA database. You can crash a machine. That's not great, but in the hierarchy of hacking, that's troll shit. It's unlikely to cause a national security issue, and it certainly doesn't give you control over anything. Now, I'm willing to believe you just misspoke there. I'm sure if you go through all of my videos, you'll find times where I said the wrong thing. It happens to the best of us. But thirdly, Mythos only found this exploit because it had access to the source code and $20,000 worth of tokens to burn. OpenBSD is open source, which means its source code is available publicly, and that applies to the other two examples as well. Most source code is not publicly available, and that's why it's such a big deal when it's leaked. Like, for example, 2 weeks ago when Claude's source code was leaked. Yes, the very company running the world's most dangerous cybersecurity software ever made leaked their own source code. So they seem really on top of all this cybersecurity stuff. Anyway, without the source code, it doesn't matter how advanced the LLM is, it can't find problems that it can't read. You skip their second example, FFmpeg, which is fine because it's just the same thing again. They found a thing where if you do a very specific thing in a very specific way, you can crash the system. In fact, on their blog, they actually state that they don't think this is very critical and it would be very hard to turn into an actual usable exploit. Funny that they didn't mention that on their press release. But the third example, Linux.
It found a bunch of different vulnerabilities in Linux that were all different from each other, that were all new ones, and then it chained them together to actually use it to create an exploit that it actually built itself autonomously to get escalation, like to get access inside of Linux to abilities it should not have had.
Okay, Hank, so that's a lie. And I really, truly hope that you don't know it's a lie, but it's a lie. This is what they say it did in their press release, but if you actually go over to their blog where they break down what it actually did, you're immediately hit with this. Mythos Preview identified a number of Linux kernel vulnerabilities that would allow an adversary to write out of bounds, e.g. through a buffer overflow, use after free or double free vulnerability. However, even after several thousand scans over the repository, because of the Linux kernel's defense in-depth measures, Mythos Preview was unable to successfully exploit any of these. So, it came up with a bunch of exploits that would have worked if Linux's security wasn't good enough to stop them. Or in other words, they didn't work. Well, okay, they would work if you already have access to the system, but getting access to the system is the hard part. And that's obviously what they meant to imply in the press release. A live omission is still a lie. Just to recap, Anthropic's 3 big examples, the examples they're using to sell the power of this AI so dangerous they can't release it to the public, are 2 extremely specific ways to crash a computer, and a series of exploits that only work if you already have access to the system. Ooh, so scary! Really makes you wonder about the true importance or danger of the 1,000 other bugs they've apparently found but can't talk about. You, Hank Green, it should make you wonder. Because despite what your incredibly frustrating thumbnail would suggest, it's hype. It's always hype, because that's what they do. It's quite literally their business model.
If LLMs are now able to write code at the level of some of the greatest software developers in the world, it can also be used to find bugs and exploit that software equally effectively.
Hank, that man just said that LLMs are writing code on the same level as the greatest software developers in the world. Do you believe him? Genuinely, Hank, do you believe him? I hope not, because he's wrong. The increase in vibe coding over the last few years has led to a direct increase in glitches, bugs, breakdowns, and oh yeah, security breaches! Because it writes shitty code. But I know why you might be confused, Hank. Like a lot of your recent AI videos, the first 10 minutes of the video is you rambling on about things that you clearly don't actually understand. And then the rest of the video is an interview with some kind of expert, in this case, cybersecurity consultant Sherry Davidoff. And Hank, I'm gonna be real with you, this woman says some absolutely insane shit over the course of this interview that you just kind of nod along to.
There is sunshine and rainbows in our future, Hank, because strong security is simple security. And right, like passwords stink, multi-factor authentication where you type in a code stinks. So really, to be secure, we have to take the human out of the equation. And that means it'll be easier for us.
What? No, don't do that.
And I think we're living in an age where if you have software developers in-house, or if you rely on any third parties, they must be using AI. You have to be using AI to check your code. And in some cases, if they're already using AI to create their code, which has its benefits, make sure that they're using it in intelligent ways.
Sherry, no, did you miss the part about how AI code causes a bunch of new security breaches? This is the exact opposite of the advice you should be giving.
Does this actually make sense to you that the AI will build their own programming languages to program in eventually?
Absolutely. I mean, what is the purpose of a programming language?
I don't know.
It's the interface between humans and the machines. So we're trying to make it understandable to people, but as AI codes more and more, we won't need humans to have that interface.
Sherry, you want the oopsie, I deleted your database bot to write its own programming language because you think that'll be more secure? The fuck are you on about?
I mean, as a computer scientist, I can say I don't think one human fully understands how a whole computer works and operates and all the program. We are well beyond that at this point in terms of level of complexity.
Sherry, where do you think the computers come from? Did God give them to us? Did they manifest on the mountaintop? No, we fucking made them, Sherry. Of course people understand how they work. Like, okay, she's literally a cybersecurity expert with like 20 years of experience, and I'm just some guy. I get that. I do. But I also have common sense and the ability to smell bullshit. And Hank, buddy, this lady is radiating stink lines. And I'm not the only one. If you go down to your comment sections, you'll find a lot of people voicing the same concerns. And I'm genuinely happy to see that. I'm glad that a lot of people are not just accepting this uncritically. But maybe you should listen to them, Hank. I don't want to mince words. This video already has over 500,000 views. It's probably the most viewed commentary about Mythos on the platform. Because you're a voice in this space that a lot of people respect and a lot of people trust. And you are abusing that trust every time you spread these lies. Because this is what Anthropic does. It's their entire playbook. They drum up fear and awe about how dangerous and spectacular their new program is, so they can draw in investors and convince people that they're better than OpenAI because they're more ethical or safe or whatever. And by uncritically taking everything they say at face value, you are playing directly into Dario Amadei's sweaty little hands. As I said up top, I was giving you the benefit of the doubt. I believed in your ability to figure this out and learn from your mistakes. But as the old saying goes, trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets. And this video was your last bucket, Hank. I think I'm done with you, Hank Green. It's very disappointing to see someone I respect a lot fall so deeply into this well of sludge. But I'm done waiting for you to learn, because you've shown no interest in learning. So you can keep posting your AI doomer rants and platforming people who think AI is going to create its own programming languages, but I will not be joining you. I'm done. Goodbye, Hank. I'll see you when I see you. Oh, hey, you're not Hank, but while you're here, thank you very much for watching, and a very special thank you to my wonderful patrons for your continued support. If you'd like to see your name up here, or just support the things that I do, then please consider signing up. It would mean a lot to me, as well as a like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring the bell. As mentioned, this video is kind of a sequel to a video I made a few months ago about AI doomerism, which you can find up here. Or if you want something totally removed, here's a video about a game that's very bad.